Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Mind Your Own Business. I want to welcome back Corey Keith, who is the owner of Corkscrew Wine and Cheese in Rockbrook. You have a prop that the people watching on YouTube can see.
Well, I was like, I brought it for us to enjoy.
Yes.
But
Yes. So Corey knows that one of my very favorite things ever of all time is champagne. I just love it. And in fact, we had a little bartering session where we traded cake for champagne, and I thought that was about the best way to barter of all time. But so he's going to pop open a little bottle of champagne that he's got here, and I want to just talk to you. Like I said, we're taking a break in the order of things. I want to talk to you about how you make decisions on which champagnes you're going to bring into the restaurant to sell. And if you just heard that tiny little burp, that's exactly the way it's supposed to sound.
I was thinking as I was driving here, I was like, I should make sure we should have some audio of this.
Yeah. Hopefully you didn't hear it. Don't ever pop that bottle of champagne open so that the cork flies. It's criminal to watch champagne fall on the floor. It should be really against the law. But how do you make this decision? Oh, first of all, tell the listening audience what we are enjoying here.
Oh, all right. And so this is where, so we try to make the wine business, it can be very intimidating for people. And part of it's terminology. And got it. So it can be very intimidating for people in the business because there's a lot of terminology, a lot of names, and the vocabulary can be challenging for people. So we try to we try to make Corkscrew comfortable and easy for people, and try to how do you make it. If you make things easy to buy, then people will be great customers at the end of the day. And part of that's having great staff that can help educate and tell people and guide them in their journey about consumption and what they like and to learn along the ways. What we do in order to select inventory, and that can be a challenge for different businesses. We have a lot of dollar bills tied up in inventory. And to be a smart operator, you need to make sure that inventory turns over in a thoughtful and quick enough manner. The beauty of Corkscrew is we have a lot of space, so that's good because we can offer a breadth of selection that's adequate, and that kind of a lot of consumers walk in the door and they want this, or this, and the best business in the world is going to have whatever the customer wants when they walk in the door. But that's very challenging. In Omaha, there are stores that have 8,000 wine selections, and there are stores that have 100 bottles of wine. So we fit a sweet spot where we feel it's adequate in terms of space, size, and offerings for our consumer. We probably have about 700 selections on the shelf at any particular time. We do have 2 locations, but in each of those locations has a manager that we give fairly free rein autonomy in order to make selections for the shelf. The nature of Corkscrew, and I've hinted at it earlier in the podcast, is we have a wine bar component, and we pour a lot of stuff by the glass, and that's the best way to get wines in front of people and in their mouths. So we try a lot of wines by the glass in order to educate and to show those to our guests, and then to maybe build that up for some retail business down the road, or kind of the long tail there. But we have strong, educated, and trained managers that, it's one of those things. Part of the job is as they become a partner with us, and as we feel each other out in terms of the employee-employer relationship, they can get a feel of what works and what doesn't work at Corkscrew. But the joy is it's not like we pour one wine to every customer that walks in the door. We do offer enough selection that you can take risk and you can try things, and then if things don't work, it's pretty easy to change things by the glass. We're not a restaurant that has a printed wine list that lasts for 6 months or a season. We tend to print menus once a week, and we make a marginal change or a small change each week. So for us, a lot of it's buying things for by the glass program, rolling that into a shelf placement down the road. So my background's in computer science. I do find comfort in numbers and the analytical approach. And especially over 20 years, we do have a pretty good data of what sells and what doesn't sell. So we are pretty thoughtful for a small independent merchant to use some of our data in terms of regional and varietal sales and price points in order to make informed decisions. And mostly it's trying to fire the bottom 20% of our wines. Since we do have 700 bottles on the shelf, there are going to be non-performers. And so how do you get rid of those and then give the buyers a chance?
You bring them to a podcast?
Yeah. No, this is great. I know you like rosé, sparkling wine, so I was wanted to bring something you enjoy. But we the point for us, especially in retail, is we're trying to eliminate the non-performers in order to provide opportunity for our buyers to find something new. So that churn over the, if it was our goal to get rid of 20% of our 700 wines, that'd be 140. That'd be buying 3 new wines a week, which is tremendous for any person in the restaurant business. Wow. That's a lot of change, but it gives a lot of, for our consumers, there's always something new in the store too at the end of the day.
Okay. What are some unexpected challenges that you have faced, and talk about how you have worked through them in a systematic and logical way, because you can't just throw things at a wall and hope they work. You can, but it doesn't work a long time. You have to be thoughtful about your approaches, and you've got a pretty big business. You've talked about 700 wines on the bottle. You've got 30 to 40 employees. You've got real estate, all those things. What are some major challenges?
I would say the nature of small business, especially any small business with staff and employees, is the people side of the equation. Things are objects that sit around and do stuff, and people are people, and so there's a lot of variability in working with people, but the ultimate measure of business success is probably growing a team and providing gainful employment to a staff of people too. So it's that balance of we need great people in order to run the business, but just the nature of having people, it makes running a business part of the challenge at the end of the day. I've got stories over time of particular instances, but I look at almost all of my employee relationships over time, and like they've always been fruitful. I try to be an employer that offers, yes, like I pay people wages and salaries and such, but at the end of the day, like employment should be more than that. And I hope they get a little bit more out of Corkscrew than just a check. But hopefully they can put in a little bit more than just, the bare minimum effort to
Sure.
work at Corkscrew at the end of the day. And I kind of hinted at it earlier. I would say, government regulation can be a big challenge for business, and a lot of it's just navigating those waters and being informed how to work within the constraints and the constructs of government regulation. A particular instance in an opening up restaurant is one of the, or opening a food service establishment is probably one of the most regulated parts of our business. And when you're building something, you have a occupancy permit that feeds back into fire and health, and there's multiple agencies that have the opportunity to provide you guidance about the choices that you make when you finish and build out a restaurant. When we opened up our second location at Corkscrew Blackstone, we hire also consultants and partners. So we had a architect that helps us design things and helps us navigate those waters of what we need to have in place in order to have a restaurant that can open up to the public. During the instance specifically at Corkscrew Blackstone, we had a health inspection to get open. And so this is by far very late in the process, paint's up on the walls. We're ready to go. We're trying to be open in a period of days to weeks. And then, you throw a curveball of, hey, your water heater is undersized. And so how do you solve that problem at the end of the day? And then, at that particular instance, that's kind of snowballed into a bigger water heater, and you have to build a space for that water heater to go. And the nature of all restaurants' space is at a premium. So, we had to build a wall and then demise a space and put a water heater in there. And it sucks to find that information out so late in the game, where you felt like maybe you could have had that information a little earlier in the process. And then again, ultimately, I am the business owner, and I take ultimate responsibility for all those things. Like, yes, I could have navigated those waters a little bit better and maybe brought people into the process sooner. But I chalk it up to on-the-job experience also.
Right.
Like, we're not going to bat
know.
1,000.
Yeah.
and that's what maybe the value is of having consultant partners is the unknown of like, hey, this may catch you if you're not careful. Other challenges.
Well, I think the water heater example is a great example of how you can't just. You could have gone and gotten yourself a bigger water heater, sure, and then you walk in and you're like, oh no, I didn't think about the size. So you really did think, okay, what are all of the steps that are going to happen as a result of having to get this new water heater,
right, and
deal with all of those in advance, at least.
Well, and you got a general contractor staring down your neck, and he's just ringing out prices, And the struggle is if a lot of if you're a consumer, like we all have our reference frame for pricing and what things should cost, and that's great. But also, when you go to buy a water heater at Home Depot, it's a certain price. When you go buy a water heater for a restaurant, it could be a different price, and part of it's commercial equipment.
Sure.
It's fascinating. Like, I was probably a little naive early on of why is all this stuff so expensive? And yes, it's expensive because it's built for a restaurant. But over time, in the 20 years of being around, you learn why things cost money, and it's mostly because they provide value. And a commercial piece of equipment is going to last for years with repeated use every day. And heck, even think about your toilet. Like when you use the restroom at home, once or twice a day. And that thing is flushed, a handful of times. At a restaurant, that thing's flushed, 50 to 100 times. It's just, you don't think about how things add up over time and how that use depreciates that equipment in a much more rapid way than you would for something that's in your house.
So the commentary that you're making right now, I think, is really critically important to people who are thinking about starting a cottage business like mine. The amount of use that your at-home equipment takes is crazy. And, we can't put in commercial dishwashers, although if I had if I had one wish, it would be that I could have a commercial dishwasher, especially on Friday and Saturday of this week when I ran my dishwasher at least 4 times a day, and the sink was immediately full as soon as the dishwasher got full.
Yeah, a commercial dishwasher can run a cycle in 90 seconds, and our home dishwasher runs it in 90 minutes.
Right, right. The oven, the fridge, the microwave. Oh my gosh, and when things break, they break in multiple things.
Breaking and serviceability too.
Sure.
Like the nice thing about expensive commercial equipment is you can get it serviced, and you can get it serviced for a long period of time. I think we all face frustrations as home consumers of you buy a clothes washer and that thing is obsoleted in 5 years,
sure,
and it's and that's maybe the struggle too, is it's inexpensive enough where it's cheaper to replace, but generally on commercial equipment it's cheaper to service things for a long period of time.
Right.
End of life is measured in tens of years versus single years.
I know for a cottage bakery like my own, I finally decided that buying the product warranties, the extended warranties, makes so much sense. It really does, because I don't want to have to replace my dishwasher every 3 years.
Right.
And I've been able to take advantage of that warranty, and it's money well spent.
And once again, it's where you find value at. Like I speak to things are expensive, but over time you realize it's worth paying for either a service warranty or those things that will just help you. It provides you value in the long run. Right.
And for the long run, what happens too is that you save so much money over time.
Yeah.
So that's terrific. Well, I want to take a little sip of this. So tell the listeners and the viewers about this.
And I just brought wine for fun today.
Jean-Charles Boisset, number 69 Rosé Burgundy. Yeah.
So I know you like the champagne, but I was mentioning earlier. So champagne can only come from the French, the region in France where champagne is from. So this is technically sparkling wine because it's from Burgundy. But
it's from sparkling France?
Yeah, but it is a sparkling wine from France, which... and it is rosé in color, because I know you maybe have a fondness for the pink stuff, which I do too.
I certainly do.
I could go for rosé sparkling wine and fried chicken any day of my life. This wine, we talked earlier about how do we pick wines, but the best part of it, or one of the most enjoyable parts of my business, is the opportunity to try wines. And so part of the reason I got in the business was to experience different things in life. But each week we probably see 20 to 30 wines brought to us by our sales partners. And so that's an enjoying part of the job. I get to learn and hear bits of knowledge either from our local representatives, but then again, we get people all the time that bring in, that may be importers that work up tier up the chain, and they are closer to our producer partners, but they maybe have a little bit more knowledge about the where these wines come from at the end of the day. And then the best opportunity for us is when we see producer partners actually travel all the way to Nebraska to help show their wines. And so we do see producers make their way to Nebraska to sales and marketing. Like they're out there trying to sell and market their wines. But as the person that makes those wines, it's a real great opportunity to ask some questions and meet the people that really, take this product from grapes into wine at the end of the day. And right out of the gate, I spoke to the sense of place, but grapes are grown in a place, and so is corn. And Nebraska, we are an agricultural state, but the corn that's grown in Nebraska is fairly homogenized, and it's all about the same at the end of the day. And they're trying to maybe make a consistent product, whereas each of these winemakers is trying to make the most unique product or the most interesting wine out of the grapes that they're given from a certain area of the land. Jean-Claude Boisset, he's married to Gina Gallo. He's a cool dude. He's a marketer. But what I appreciate about this gentleman and his wines is wine has been around forever, but it's also evolving. And part of the challenge for the wine business right now is how do we approach younger consumers? How do we get them interested in the product? How do we get consumers that are maybe trying to drink less alcohol to either enjoy the things that they do enjoy in limited fashion? But Mr. Boisset is just he's an idea guy, maybe with a more future thinking perspective than the very kind of rote traditional approach in marketing wine at the end of the day. But yeah, a couple months ago I tried this wine and I thought I liked it, and so we bought it and put it on the shelf. That's the very short answer of how do we buy wine.
Well, I want to tell you, this wine is absolutely stunning in its beauty. So it's darker than most rosés I've seen. It's got like a hint of orange or a peach or a salmon, almost like a raw salmon color, if I had to describe this. And it's got the bubbles. And I love that a lot of times now people are serving sparkling in the larger wine glasses. The pours are probably the same, but you just get this impression.
Yeah, no, and that's what I did bring this from home, but I would say drinking sparkling wine in a flute is okay, but a bigger bowl is probably preferred. And then again too, like we want you to, as a consumer, there is no right or wrong. We want you to enjoy it however you enjoy it. We can coach and maybe give our input as to how the best way to maximize enjoyment. And I think it can sound snooty, but glassware does have a fairly profound influence on how you enjoy wine at the end of the day. There are companies that have made millions of dollars in making glassware, and it's one of those aspects that if you're going to invest, $10 to $30 to $50 to $500 on a bottle of wine, you want to make sure you're doing it. A $10 glass may go a long way versus a $2 glass to help you have a better experience enjoying that wine.
Well, I'm enjoying this wine very much. It's got a really lovely flavor. And
yeah, and I didn't think, it's 11 a.m. here in Nebraska right now. I didn't think it was too early to have a glass of wine. It's really 4:30
in the afternoon. So let's get back to talk about your success, because Corkscrew has been incredibly successful. And I'm going to skip a little order here. You talked earlier, you've got 2 locations now. So you've been open for almost 20 years.
Correct.
In Rockbrook. And then Blackstone is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this month, last month?
Blackstone just crossed 10 years in January. So just a couple, or about 2 months ago at this point.
So who owns Blackstone?
So I'll give you the family tree life story, because I always find this interesting when we talk about, we have a lot of our wine producer partners that are family operations, and they get bigger, and you're just trying to figure out who does what at the end of the day. But so Corkscrew Rockbrook, as I mentioned early on, my wife and I own Corkscrew Rockbrook, and my wife is a partner in the business, but at this point, a non-operating partner. She has her profession and her career, and yeah, she listens to me at the end of the night and we talk about stuff and the problems that we face, and try to share the successes that are the good things about the business. But about 10 years ago, my sister was in corporate world and doing human resources for larger companies in the Chicago area. And we kicked around, part of business is trying to grow your business. And for us, growth solves a couple of problems do you want to make more money at some point? Is how much money is enough? And for us, it was probably more of the challenge of, if you can create a restaurant or a wine bar or a retail shop that can do one location, you're doing pretty well. But once you get to 2 or 3, you really know you've got to figure it out. And mostly because the simple fact is you can't be in each of those locations all the time. And so part of the strength of a business is building teams and systems and processes in order to achieve the goals of the business at the end of the day. And so Corkscrew, Blackstone, especially 10 years ago, gave me the motivation to, let's see if we can really do this and put people in place in order to operate these businesses. And we scale for us helps solve a few problems. Like having a small staff is great. Less moving parts, less variability, things like that. But when you do get curveballs thrown at you, it tends to hurt a little bit more. And if you got a service staff of 3 or 4 people and someone gets sick for a week, that puts 25% of that burden on the rest of that team. And if you have a couple locations where you can share employees and resources through, sometimes solving those problems get a little bit easier, just because there's a little bit more resources to work with. And so for us, expansion and growth was, trying to test us for systems and processes, bringing on my sister as a partner for, the economic benefit for her at the end of the day, and then trying to see if we can, make a team that gave a little bit more resilience as we grew a little bit larger at the end of the day. And truly, like for me as an employer, like and as a business, it is my goal to make money and to have economic benefit for my business at the end of the day. But I do cherish in the fact that we do employ quite a few people at a fairly decent compensation level that hopefully they can live their lives on too, or at least where they are at their lives at this point.
Sure. So tell me, in 20 years, what have been the biggest changes that you've seen over time? And also another question related to that is, where you are now kind of where you envisioned yourself 20 years ago?
Sure. I would say, like, in the 20-year Corkscrew story, the biggest change we've seen as Corkscrew has evolved is maybe the evolution of food. And so original Corkscrew Rockbrook, was actually almost had a fourth leg of the business, but we had a retail cheese counter at Corkscrew Rockbrook at the beginning.
Really?
And it was cool, like, sort of like wine, cheese has very much a sense of place, and there's cheese from all over the world, and it ties into the wine business, and it makes wine pairing very easy too. Is if you drinking wine from a certain region, the cheese from that region is also going to probably taste pretty well together. So having a cool cheese case was awesome. Like and we had cheeses and charcuterie from all over the world, and we had 20 to 30 to 40 different items in that case all the time, and it was cool. Over time, that business has gotten maybe a little bit more competitive and a little bit more, in Omaha especially, breadth of cheese selection has gotten better in those period of time. Like you can walk into a Baker's or a Kroger here and have the Murray's cheese counter has a fair amount of prepackaged stuff, but much more thoughtful selections than were available 20 years ago. Whole Foods and other merchants do have very nice cheese selection. And so for us, the cheese business was fun. But as our wine bar business kind of grew, it became challenging to operate those at the same time, because we would try to be selling retail cheese at the same time as a busy service on a Friday. And it didn't deliver enough value for maybe the headache that it caused. But also, our early employees did a little bit of everything. And so the early food business at Corkscrew was cheese and charcuterie only, and our staff pretty much did everything. So they were cooks, they were dishwashers, they were service personnel. And then sort of, as I said, as we grow and and as you scale, people start to specialize because it makes a little bit more sense and it makes the jobs more efficient and such. And so when we opened, so Corkscrew originally was cheese charcuterie for food and maybe a couple other items for the first 10 years of its life. When we opened Corkscrew Rockbrook, we made a conscious choice to have a dedicated kitchen staff with leadership and provide a fuller menu that was produced by people with skills and specialties in food production. So we had cooks and a chef, and that was a turning point for us in order for growth and to maybe adapt to what our consumers wanted at the end of the day. Like, it's great to go out for a glass of wine, but you can only have so many glasses of wine before you probably need a little bite of food and maybe to enjoy that experience a little bit more. So when we opened Corkscrew Blackstone, so Corkscrew Blackstone is a partnership with me and my sister. My wife is obviously along for the ride too. But we made, and Jessica brought a lot of HR experience to Corkscrew, and it allows us to, have better processes with people and systems and how we hire and fire and train people at the end of the day. So that was an inflection point in our history. And then we've been doing more food at Corkscrew Rockbrook at the end of the day for about 10 years. And then, Corkscrew Rockbrook, Corkscrew Blackstone is where we first started doing a broader food menu. And Corkscrew Blackstone had flatbreads, bruschettas. We want it to be focused on shareable items that people can enjoy with groups, but not necessarily become a capital R restaurant where it's entree oriented, things like that. At that point, Corkscrew Rockbrook was still kind of trudging along doing cheese and charcuterie. And the hardest part about that for us is it's hard to change an operating business in dramatic fashion. Like, how do you put a new restaurant or how do you put a new kitchen into an existing business that operates every day? And so that was a real quandary for us. It made it hard to make those changes that we wanted to make so that both locations could become on a parallel. The COVID period of time gave us the blessing for us. It was a blessing in disguise. Shutdowns in the restaurant business allowed us to use that time to make those changes that would have been harder as we were operating.
Okay.
So part of that as a business owner, I would say is using, how do you turn lemons into lemonade, but how do you look at opportunity? COVID was a challenging time for restaurants, and no doubt about that, but we knew Corkscrew was going to exist after the pandemic or through the pandemic. So we were making choices at that time in order to be as successful as we could as we came out of the pandemic. And so that enabled us to put kitchen, we had an expansion, a couple hundred square feet added to Corkscrew Rockbrook, added kitchen facilities, added ventilation. So all the stuff in a period of time where it was so much easier to accomplish that versus when we operate on our busy season. So yeah, the biggest changes has probably been the evolution of food at Corkscrew. And that's like almost all restaurants is like we need to stay top of mind, and we need to stay like, food evolves over time. In the past 20 years, consumers have become much more savvy about trends and things like that. And so we want to make sure Corkscrew can adapt to those trends and be a place of choice when people want to go out to have a snack and a glass of wine. What else?
Well, it seems like actually what you've talked about is pretty significant. It's impressive what you talk about, and really from the perspective of starting a business and growing a business. You talk about all the things that I think about regularly as a business owner, and I didn't have I did have the experience, just in a different way.
Yeah, we all have our shared experience, and a lot of it's how do we share that with others so that we can all grow.
Right, and it's so important to really listen to people who have been there, and like you said, hire people who have the experience in the area that you want, not just people who know I would say buzzwords. It's not exactly what I mean, but
I look back like my dad has given me advice over the years, and sometimes as a child, you're just like, oh, you're full of crap and you don't know what's going on. And most of the time that comes back to bite you because they are right with their life experience. So
no kidding. Well, let's just move this toward the end with asking you a couple of little bit more personal questions. So, tell me a little bit about your family. And then the thing that I want to end with is, how do you balance life with your family? Because I know you've got kids. And so let's talk about that. Sure. Tell me about your family.
So I'm, like I said, my wife, Ann, was mentioned early on, and she has been my partner in life we've been married for 21 years here.
Congratulations.
And that's been an accomplishment. Especially in the restaurant business, like it's a hard business to have a marriage type relationship in, and so that's I think a pretty strong accomplishment to stand the test of time with a life partner like that. We do have 3 kids together: Sam, Parker, and Scarlett. My oldest is Sam. He is an 18-year-old at KU studying mechanical engineering. Sam has worked at Corkscrew. It's fun having a small family business that your kids can work at, and maybe to see what you do every day and have that life experience and a chance to, work hard as a younger person. My kids have all washed dishes at Corkscrew at the end of the day.
Perfect. So you have 3 dishwashers.
Yeah, I did until one went to college.
Yeah. He didn't want to wash dishes.
Yeah. And then Parker is my middle son. He's 16. He's at Elkhorn South. He's my pinch hitting dishwasher currently. We do have a full staff of high school dishwashers, which is great. And once again, like, it's cool to provide employment to all types of people. Like, Corkscrew doesn't have to be a profession for everybody. Like, we have great full-time managers and such, but we also provide an opportunity for people to work a couple days a week and make some scratch for if they wanted a couple extra bucks in their pocket, or high schoolers trying to get some first-time job experience. So it's cool to offer a whole range of opportunities for people there. My youngest is Scarlett. She just turned 14 last week. She's at Elkhorn Ridge Middle School. She'll be at South next year with Parker. My kids are kind of sports kids and soccer kids at the end of the day, and they're fun. But I would say the challenge is how do you have your cake and eat it too, if you want to tie it up into that comment. Work-life balance is, a challenge, and that's one of those things you do give up when you make a move in an entrepreneurship or small business. Is the phone can always ring or something. You are responsible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as an owner. Obviously, there are businesses that are not so exposed to every hour of the day, but in my 20 years of experience, like, when there are days of closure at Corkscrew, like, you kind of cherish those days because the phone can't ring, and it's not the simple fact of just being closed, but like, you can have that time all to yourself and not worry about the worst case scenario. Hey, something's on fire, something broke, something. The challenges that we face on the day-to-day basis. So you cherish your days off for sure, and the holidays, but the nature of the restaurant businesses is there's not, the holidays are few and far between. Like, we are there for our guests, and our guests, want the opportunity to go out and enjoy what we offer almost every day of the year. So, I would say in my 20 years, my work-life balance has evolved over time. And part of it's, as I spoke to earlier, is as you get bigger, scale solves certain problems, and it maybe introduces certain problems. And so Corkscrew, early on, I was a man of many hats and did a lot of the work. And even for me in my journey of small business ownership, I kind of looked at my success as when I did certain jobs less. So like early on at Corkscrew, I would cut cheese and prep cheese plates. And I could kind of mark at the time where we had enough staff and the economics were working that the other staff could do that job for me. And so you would think, oh man, I didn't have to, prep this item for, 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So that I was becoming more successful in my mind over time as I was able to delegate that job to somebody else and focus my efforts on maybe growing the business and doing things like that. And then that inflection point, as we added, full kitchen operations and kitchen staff, very much so is as you added those resources to the equation, it takes a lot of burden off of, as we specialize those jobs, everyone was able to do their jobs and focus on the task at hand versus maybe becoming the jack of trades. And even for me, like Corkscrew, Rockbrook, I was the GM for many years, and then we had some assistant general managers or some general managers over time. But once we introduced food operations, that as we had scale, we had more dollars that we could devote towards human resources and people, and so we were able to afford front of the house managers or general managers, and we had a kitchen manager, and so putting people in place is buys you time, and it's, as a business owner, that's what you got to think about it. Is many people get caught in the restaurant trap of working in their business, and that's fine if you want a job, but you probably should think about what is true success in your business too at the end of the day. And if it's your passion and you want to make every dish that hits the pass and it goes out to the guests, more power to you. But it's hard to have true success and to have a balance in life if you are doing every task in your business at the end of the day.
I think it's nearly impossible. In fact, I think what you've just said takes us right back to the time value of money. So buy better equipment because it's going to last longer. It's more expensive at the outset, but the value of it over time. Hire good people.
Right.
So that
time value of people, and that's the tough one to swallow because people are expensive, and especially nowadays, good people are expensive, or even more expensive. But,
sure.
And it related to that too is probably being well capitalized. Like if you're going to start a business, make sure you got the funding and the efforts to afford those things that you can have as much success as possible out of the gate versus. If you penny wise, pound foolish, it'll bite you in the back at the end of the day too.
I love that because that's actually the topic of my next podcast. Yeah. So as we draw to a close, just go ahead. Let's tell people where both locations are.
Sure.
And what your hours are.
Man, I'm not sure if I'm going to pull this off right.
Well, the locations are good.
I'll give you some guidance here, and you can go look on Google.
Yeah.
But Corkscrew Rockbrook is at 108th and Center in Rockbrook Village. We've been there for 19 years or so. It's on Google. We are open like daytime hours, 11 a.m. to evening hours, 9 p.m. during the week, and mostly till 10 on the weekends. Sunday noon to 8. But Corkscrew Rockbrook is a little bit bigger than Corkscrew Blackstone. We do a little bit more retail business out of there, but it's a great place to go have a glass of wine midday, or if you have the opportunity, you can come get a snack for lunch and hang out over there. Corkscrew Blackstone's in the Blackstone District at 3908 Farnham. We've been through a challenging period of, the streetcar is coming to Farnham Street, and there've been a lot of work for MUD and such as of late. A lot of construction efforts have been on our road. It's given us a challenging business operating environment, but we are looking forward to a clear Farnham Street.
Oh, good.
Which just got cleared out a couple weeks ago. And for us, the spring flush is we're strong in Corkscrew Blackstone. Good. Corkscrew Blackstone opens a little bit later. It opens at 3:00 during the week. It opens a little bit early on Friday, Saturday, and then we run a little bit later down there. Just the nature of the clientele and our customers down there, we are open till 10 during the week and midnight on Friday, Saturday. And those we tend to adjust to what our customers want at the end of the day, but check our Google listings and you can find us with current hours everywhere.
Right. Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing all of your expertise and knowledge and history.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you for the champagne.
Oh, anytime.
Say cheers.
We'll get an audio cling.
Yeah, there you go. And I will see you next time with more information on actually pricing and costing, and mind your own business.